Welcome to Joe Stunner Boxing. Teofimo Lopez wins a very convincing, unanimous decision over Arnold Barboza. Barbosa was undefeated coming in, but he was never at the races against Lopez. Lopez was looking very, very sharp. And Lopez is kind of a rhythm fighter. You know, if you let him get into his groove, he's going to stand you on your head. And Barbosa is a good, solid fight. He was coming off a good win in Manchester against Jack Catterall. But he was nowhere to be found in this fight because Lopez was too fast, way too imaginative. Feet were quicker. Barbosa he showed a lot of, good tight defense, a lot of fortitude, didn't give up, coming forward, but he just couldn't get his foot in the door. It was always going to be a wide decision as soon as Lopez found his rhythm and got into his groove. Now, if you think back to Lopez's only defeat, which was to George Kambosos, and I'll push aside all this talk about, he was unwell, he had a bad camera. That's not Kambosos' fault. I don't like it when people say that. It kind of smacks a little bit of rewriting history. Maybe he wasn't at his best. That's fine. Maybe he did have an injury or two. Lots of boxers go into matches with injuries. But let's give Kambosos some credit in that fight, because what he did do was jump on Lopez, not allow him to settle, not allow him to find any kind of rhythm, attack him, quicken his feet, let his hands go. And that gave Lopez plenty to think about. He was floored in the first round of that fight. Now, he wasn't allowed to do a lot of what he's capable of doing. But Barbosa just didn't do any of that. He kind of plodded after him and tried a few jabs and fired the odd right hand. I mean, in the sixth round, he did land one very good right hand, which actually, there was a slight cut underneath Lopez's left eye. Nothing major. I mean, it's more of a graze than a cut, but we needed more of that. We needed some fire from Barbosa. We needed some vim and vigor, and none of that was to be found. Now, I think Barbosa's a good B plus sort of fighter. When he's on his game, maybe a B plus fighter. But when Lopez is firing on all cylinders and he's got his head right and everything, he is, you're talking a grade A fighter here. And he was, but he was allowed to do what he wanted to do. But at the same time, maybe he wasn't allowing Barbosa to fight as good as he can fight. Barbosa had a very, very questionable win over Sean McComb, who I thought easily outboxed him. And clearly Lopez did the same thing, although if you look at two of the judges had it 116, 112. I do not know where they found 4 rounds to give to Barbosa. Apart from the 6th round, was there another round I would have given him? I don't know. Can't remember one. And this was, you have to give Lopez a lot of credit for not allowing Barbosa to find his rhythm, to get into his groove, to do what he's capable of doing. But the talent, the evident talent gulf, it was really striking. And there just seemed to be so much more imagination, so much more natural fluidity to what Lopez was doing. And whereas Barbosa looks like someone who has learned how to box. You know what I mean? Does it very well, solid guy, no visible real weaknesses, seems like he's got a good chin as well. Whereas Lopez looks like a guy who just has natural talent, like I'm almost tempted to say he was born to box or bred to box, maybe. He didn't learn it, he was bred into it. And I just think that, he wants to move up now. He's talking about moving up to 147 from 140 now, Lopez. He's calling out Boots Ennis. He says that's a possibility. Boots, huge for welterweight. Be a good fight. I think Boots, with that jab and with his physical strength, if he makes the weight right, would give Lopez plenty to think about. I don't think Lopez would find it easy to get his groove on against Boots. But you have to say that, Yeah, Barbosa. Barbosa is, like I say, at his best, probably a B plus fighter. You wouldn't put him in there up there with Lopez, Boots. You know, I mean, would he beat Ryan Garcia? Probably not. But maybe he's maximised his talent. He's not, I'm not saying he's a bad fighter, but when he's on it, when he gets his head right, when he's mentally, emotionally prepared, because Lopez is a very emotional character, and those fighters tend to run sometimes on nervous energy. But when he's nice and in a good place mentally and emotionally, we get a performance like that, which is, in my opinion, was a terrific performance. This is the best I've seen Lopez for many, many years. I think he was better against Barbosa than he was against Josh Taylor. Although Josh Taylor, when he had, he had 4, 5, 6 rounds in him, he made it competitive against Lopez. And then he sort of ran out of gas. He was dead at the weight. But Lopez now says, 140, I've done that. I want to go to 147. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. He is the Ring Magazine. Having beaten Taylor, he is the Ring Magazine champion, the so-called lineal champion, whatever that means, supposed to mean these days. But, to be honest with you, I'd like to see Ryan Garcia and Lopez fight. I think that would be a good one. It'd be a really good fight. Because you've got two very volatile, erratic characters coming together. Can you imagine the build-up? Wow. Anyway, this wasn't a particularly exciting fight, but the right guy won, which is the main thing. I don't want no controversy, no crappy cards, or no nonsense. Let's just have good, even if it ain't a great fight, let's have the right man winning, and the right man did win. So, what do you think of it? Comments below. You know what I'm going to say now. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Thank you very much, as always, for listening in, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Bye for now.